Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. So this is the promised video about the HD DVD collection. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what you have in front of you, including this here, if you can see everything. I'm going to talk about this here a little bit briefly. I may save that for another video, we'll see what happens, but this is an HD DVD player, which you would have needed in order to play these. Now specifically this player here, and I'll put the model number and the make and everything in the directly underneath. You would have needed one of these in order to play these types of discs, and I'll explain a little bit about that, what the little format war that happened that these were involved in, and then also why I have them in the first place. So I'll get to that really quickly. I will also link in the description to a video which will explain the little format war in more detail than I'm going to. They did a pretty good job in about 5 or 6 minutes, so I'll leave you for that if you want to know more. But for now, let's just talk about what's here and why it's here. So HD DVD really came down to being another format that came out around the same time as Blu-ray. It was really two competing ideas over the same thing. They wanted to have high definition video in a disc format, and they came up with their version of it. This was the initial. If you had kind of hedged your bets originally between Blu-ray and HD DVD, you would have had HD DVD as the front runner, because realistically, conceptually, the difference between it and regular DVD was a little bit less of a leap. But what ended up happening is Toshiba, who backed this, didn't have Sony's, kind of marketing acumen and an understanding of how to appeal to people. So in the end, obviously, spoiler, Blu-ray won, and this disc format went kaput. So realistically, the format war lasted, I think, a little under less than 2 years, but I'll give you a couple. I did jot down a couple of notes. So just for reference, it was launched in the US in April 2006, and around 475 titles had been released in the US by June of 2008. But realistically, Toshiba threw in the towel and finally gave up, conceding the victory to Blu-ray in February 19th, 2008, which actually might be a good time to talk about the player in more depth then, because in only a couple of months, it'll be 10 years since Toshiba threw in the towel. So why do I have a collection of HD DVD at all? Just as I explained earlier, it was, the defeated format in a format war. Well, the short answer is exactly for that. I didn't get into any of this, or even Blu-ray, until the format war was already done. So I was actually working in a liquidation store that sold DVDs and Blu-rays and the whole bit. But one of the things is when we ended up getting pallets of these, and we got pallets of them after Toshiba had already conceded it. So by that point, I think when I first got my first HD DVD was almost a full year after the format war ended in 2009, thereabouts, almost 2010. And the main reason that I picked it up was that these were really dirt cheap. And the reason being is as soon as the format war ended, the players went for basically nothing. You could get the discs. So while the Blu-ray version of the disc, which in a lot of cases was the exact same transfer that they used to create a lot of these, in basically the same quality, they were still going for $25, $30, and sometimes even $35, while these were immediately thrown into fire sales. So realistically, if you had bought a player right near the end, you could have gotten 5 or 10 or whatever amount of movies thrown in basically with the player just to get rid of it and get it out the door. But if you were in a liquidator like us, we were selling some of these for $5 to people coming in the store. So for us, obviously, if you were working in the store as an employee, you could get a discount on that. So I was getting a lot of these movies here for $3 a pop. So at that point, if it's a $3 movie versus the same one in $25 in effectively the same quality, well, yeah. Because for practical purposes, now later on, some of these were remastered in the Blu-ray versions. But if you took a transfer from the same time period and then took the Blu-ray version of it, you're probably not going to perceive too much of a difference, if any at all. So realistically, you were getting a high definition video experience, just as good. It's only maybe in a bigger movie where they had to compress it a little bit more where you might notice a little bit of a difference. So that's why I have them, because they were available cheap. In all, I ended up buying 44 of them. So that's what this collection consists of. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take these. We're going to change perspective so you can get a closer view of what I've got here. I'll show you the movies that I ended up picking up for this collection. And by the way, I'm probably not going to add any more to it. There really is no point at this stage. But I still have the player so I can play these and watch them whenever I want to. But I'll show you what's here, and then we'll talk about any ones that I feel like are worth saying anything extra about. See you in a second. All right, so we're going to give it a shot here. I'm going to go from the first pile, and then we'll get into the second pile. So first of all, you have 12 Monkeys with Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt. I've never actually got around to watching this one yet, but I was able to pick this one up as part of relatively inexpensive. Not in my store, but this one I picked up with a website that was clearing them out at the time. Set up the pile there. Aeon Flux with Charlize Theron. So this one here, again, same kind of thing. And a quick distinction I'll make for you. So as we go along, once we get to the next one, I'll show you, but just pay attention. So you have the HD DVD logo up here. This one is strictly an HD DVD, which can only be played if you happen to have the player. One of the things that we had in our store is that we had people who would buy discs, not like this from us necessarily, because the next one would be the kind that you would have gotten from my store, because those were the ones we had in the pallets. But if you bought one of these and you try to put it into a DVD player, nothing would happen for you. So we'd actually have people try to return some of them that they had bought in other stores, and the way we knew that it wasn't one of ours was that ours had a slightly different thing up here, because our pallets were very specific movies, not including this one. But anyway, as long as you had a player, you could play this, but otherwise you'd have to have one of the ones like the next one I'm going to show you. So this is Alpha Dog. Now you can see the difference up here. This one says combo format. So really all this means, and I'll actually show you on this one here, so they had slight variations because this actually had a little flap that would dig in. But what would happen is you'd have the disc like this, and this is actually the movie. But what happens is the discs were all double-sided. So you'd see, let's see if you can see that. Turn it over. So this side was your HD DVD, and the other side, as you can see, B, other side is your DVD. So this one actually would be completely usable for you even today. If you happen to have an HD DVD player, great. Then you can use it and see it in high definition. Otherwise, you can flip the disc over and watch the DVD version. So you still got this one. I haven't actually gotten around to watching this one yet, but as I said, this one is still good. Even if the player dies off, I can still watch that. Next one is Army of Darkness. This is actually the first time I had seen one of the ones in this series. To be honest, I've never watched The Evil Dead or Evil Dead 2. I watched Army of Darkness. I like the humor in it. It really is very silly. Like, if you're into Bruce Campbell, this is a great movie. And like I said, this format would have been the cheapest way to get it at the time, outside of just buying a DVD. But in this case, you get the DVD along with a high definition if you happen to have the capability. So next you got Assault on Precinct 13 with Lawrence Fishburne and Ethan Hawke. A pretty good remake. I've never actually watched the original, but that's one of the things I got to get around to. But I've definitely seen that disc before. Balls of Fury. Utterly ridiculous. I watched it one time. I really like Christopher Walken. It is ridiculous, as much as you can imagine, given that cover art, but it's definitely something to watch. Being John Malkovich. So I definitely saw this one. This is the format that I saw it with the first time. It is a very interesting movie, and it's a very different Cameron Diaz than you're used to seeing in a lot of other movies. It's very strange. Beowulf Directors Cut. So this one was interesting in that they've got that kind of CGI'd, like it's almost like a cartoon, but it's really not. I really don't know how to describe it, but it's definitely different, different aesthetic. It definitely was probably revolutionary for its time in the way it was done, but it's still an interesting one. I don't know how well it holds up. I haven't watched it in a while, but it would definitely be interesting to see how well it would go in today's. Born on the 4th of July. So this one was actually one that I bought on eBay a couple of years ago. So it's still sealed off. I haven't done anything with it. I probably will crack it open because I don't really see myself buying this one on Blu-ray to, I won't say upgrade because I don't think that's the appropriate term. I would say just to replace. This is probably one I'll watch one time and maybe that'll be it for it. But again, if it's cheap enough, you're going to pick it up. So this next one is a series here. So you got Born Identity, Born Supremacy, and the only one that we would have been able to get at the store would have been Born Ultimatum. So this is actually the first time I had the original trilogy on any format. Later on, I did end up replacing this, and when I do the Blu-ray video, I'll show that off. But for now, this was the first time that I had the trilogy, and I watched all three of them in this format, and they look very good. And I have, obviously, the trilogy again in Blu-ray format. So this is Breach. This was one of the original ones that I watched right near the beginning. It is an interesting kind of spy film. So you can see, history of the greatest breach, security breach in U.S. history. It is an interesting film. I haven't watched it in a while. I might want to revisit this one at some point. Children of Men. Very interesting film. I will say that if memory serves me, I think there was a sequence in here that was pretty much shot in one take, which was really well done, and this is kind of an interesting one that I would love to revisit at some point. Casino. Kind of a classic film. Really enjoyable, and I ended up picking up, if you've seen any of my Blu-ray pickups recently, I did end up picking this up on Blu-ray so that I'd have a copy. But in the meantime, I still had this one from the HDDV collection. Dantes Peak. Pretty good film. I think there were two of them, though. There was Dantes Peak, and there was another volcano film right around the same time. I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but what I'll do is, if I remember it, I'll put it on the screen somewhere just so you know which one I was talking about. Daylight. So this is one from a Sylvester Stallone that I hear a lot of things about. As you can see, though, I haven't gone around to watching it. I really need to, because I've heard this is a very interesting film. But we're going to see. Like, I'll have to judge it for myself, but at least I've got it here, and I'll unseal it at some point and check it out. This is The Deer Hunter. So this one, again, is one that I've heard a lot about. It's got Christopher Walken, Robert De Niro in it. Very interesting concept. Haven't had the chance to crack it open and check it out. Alright, so this is another series here. So The Fast and the Furious, Too Fast, Too Furious, and Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. So this is actually, oddly enough, the first one of the Fast and the Furious series I ever watched. I had this one first, so I ended up watching it because, you can see, combo format, so that came in my store. Since then, I've seen the Fast and the Furious, Too Fast, Too Furious, and obviously the most recent iterations. But that is the original trilogy in HD DVD format. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Haven't had the chance to watch this one yet, which is a real shame. I really should. Okay, let me slide this a little closer. Make it easier. Jet Li's Fearless. A very interesting film. I'm really not sure how I feel about it. I feel like this is one that I'm going to have to watch again to get a real sense for. But the action sequences are really impressive, so I enjoyed that. So let me slide this out of the way. There we go. Now, if you saw my last video, you can remember that I added a little inlay where I was very upset that I somehow managed to forget this one. Field of Dreams, if you're a baseball fan or you like Kevin Costner, this is a classic. James Earl Jones in it as well. Really good film if you're kind of a baseball fan. It's definitely something special. Four Brothers. Pretty generic, definitely not special. The Good Shepherd. So kind of an interesting film. Matt Damon, Angelina Jolie, Robert De Niro. This one I think is about the CIA. I don't remember the plot on this one, but I'll probably have to go back and revisit this one because I thought it was pretty good when I watched it the first time. Hollywoodland. So, confession, I haven't seen it. The subject matter is interesting, but I haven't popped this one open to look at it. Hot Fuzz. I really like this one and Shaun of the Dead. I haven't had the chance to see the other one in the trilogy that's kind of peripherally related to this, but I definitely will have to check it out. But Hot Fuzz is a real good one that's definitely worth revisiting. The Italian Job. So a lot of these heist movies I really enjoy. I ended up picking this one up on Blu-ray later on to have, the version, but this one's a really good version of it as well. The Kingdom. This one's actually pretty good. It's kind of an enjoyable kind of action suspense movie. I haven't watched it in a while, but I do remember enjoying it when I watched it the first time. So Tomb Raider. Now, one thing I noticed as I went through the movies is that there were actually a lot of them with Angelina Jolie in them. And there's going to be at least one more, if memory serves me, that we're going to see in a minute, but I did laugh a little bit. So I do have the original Tomb Raider on HD DVD. I'll be honest, even with my enjoyment of action movies, I don't know if I would bother buying the Blu-ray version of it. The movie is good. I just don't know if it's worthwhile. And I'm also going to be interested to see the new Tomb Raider with the new actress in it. So we'll see how that kind of compares to this one. Because these were pretty campy and kind of cartoonish. Lethal Weapon. So this is a classic, kind of enjoyable. Really not a very impressive package, though, I'll be honest with you. Now, one thing that I guess is kind of notable here about these is that this really is kind of one of the oldest type of HD DVD case. So I'll just do for a little comparison. So these are kind of a little more rounded off. A little bit more squarish. And these are really rounded off. I don't know if there's any difference to it, and you got kind of this thing that looks like feet on the bottom of it. It's kind of weird, but it is a little different. So I guess there was some variations in the cases. Lost in Translation. Really kind of an interesting film. I got to go back and watch this one because, to be honest with you, the first time I watched it, I was kind of in a mood not unlike the main characters. I was kind of bored and out of it, but I'll be interested to see watching it again kind of with a fresh set of eyes and see how I feel about it. Miami Vice remake, not really that great. I don't even know if I would revisit this, but it's something. It was inexpensive, so I picked it up. All right. Complete Matrix Trilogy, so on HD DVD. So it's really just the three movies, Matrix, Matrix Reloaded, and Matrix Revolutions. I really like the case, you know, with like the Matrix graphics and everything. It looks kind of neat. I did end up picking up the Matrix, the original one, the first movie for Blu-ray. I really have no use for seeing Revolutions or watching Reloaded ever again. For me, I'm going to just pretend there was the first movie and that's it. Out of Sight. I did watch this some time ago. This is actually the movie I used to kind of test the player a little while ago to make sure it was still working. But I haven't had the chance to watch this one all the way through in a long time, and I'll probably have to check it out at some point. Okay, Payback Straight Up. So this one here was actually the one that led me to going out of my way, and I'll talk about it more during the Blu-ray collection video, but this one led me to go out of my way to find an Australian import in order to see the full, the theatrical release, because this is a director's cut version, and that's all you get out of this, which is the same as you would get with the Blu-ray, unless you went out of your way to find one in an international region that you can play and watch the theatrical release, which I think is much better than this version. Shooter with Mark Wahlberg. It's a good action movie. It's definitely one where if you grab some popcorn and you got an evening, it's a worthwhile watch. Probably not rewatchable too much, but if you wait, it's been a while, you can go back and enjoy it again. Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow. Interesting cast, kind of a unique aesthetic. Definitely, it's definitely worth a watch if you've never had the chance to see this one before. All right, Smoking Aces. So, two things. Number one, combo format, so this came from my store. Number two, I got kind of tired of looking at the original case, but what I'll do is I'll take the little part off. So that is actually what the outside of it looks like. I basically just printed out another one and put it on because I kind of like this this cover better. This was just made by someone else, and then it was available. You could download it and just print out your own copy. Interesting movie. I enjoyed it for what it was. They ended up making a couple of straight-to-DVD sequels, but I think the first one is really the best version. And if you have a chance to see this one, I think it's worthwhile. Training Day, which has that different cover design. Definitely a good movie, enjoyable. Denzel Washington is very good in this movie as kind of an anti-hero villain character. Really interesting in the way they did it, and it's definitely worth a watch. So Unleashed with Jet Li. Really good action movie. If you enjoy your martial arts, this is a good one. Much in similar vein as Fearless, but obviously set in more of a modern setting. Definitely interesting for sure, and an enjoyable one. So this was one of the last ones that I picked up from the store for my collection, and a good one to finish off on. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this trip through kind of an obsolete format. I don't get too many opportunities to talk about this piece of the collection at all, and it's pretty much stayed static. I'm not going to be, I might have mentioned earlier, I'm not going to be adding any more to them. I don't really see any reason to get rid of them because, to be honest, even though the format is obsolete, they're also not really worth that much at this point. So I'm going to hang on to them, and for some of these movies I won't end up double dipping in order to get a Blu-ray version of it. But if for some reason I do want to go back and watch them, they are here for as long as the player keeps working, so it still is, so I'll keep them for now. But hopefully you enjoyed this, and if you have any questions about the format or anything related to it, you can check out the video that I linked in the description about the format war. Maybe I'll end up talking about the player at some point, just to talk a little bit about it. I will tell you that it is extremely loud, and I'm very surprised that I watched movies with that player exclusively for a period of time before I started using my PlayStation 3 for Blu-rays exclusively at the time, and now PlayStation 4 and Xbox One and all that. I can't believe that I was able to watch it with how loud the motor is and be able to enjoy the movies. I guess if you put it in a cabinet, it drowns out the sound a lot, but it was definitely a loud machine. So maybe if I do that video, you'll get a chance to hear it and you'll kind of hear what I'm talking about. So for now, that's it for this. So please like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks very much.